Hello crafters, this is Yana Smakula for SimonsSTM.com. Welcome back for another Yippee For Yana episode. In this video, I'm creating clean and simple birthday cards with the Simon Says Stamp Party Like a Puffin stamp set. Let's jump right in. Here I have all of the images from this stamp set positioned inside my Mini Misty stamping tool, and I'm going to stamp them using alcohol marker friendly ink. I'm using the Hero Arts Intense Black ink today. And by the way, all of the supplies are linked and listed in the video description below. I'm stamping these images onto Simon Says Stamp 130-pound cardstock. I love this paper for Copic coloring as it takes ink really well, and it is also very thick and sturdy paper, perfect for colored die cuts. I know I will be cutting these birds out, so using this paper is ideal for my project. Next, we're going to do some coloring. I picked this stamp set in particular because I wanted to show you how you can do coloring on a very simple, very basic level, but still have your stamped images look colorful and beautiful and playful. Now, I'm not going to do much blending. In fact, I'm aiming to use only one color of ink for each section and each image that I plan to color. I'm using C9 to color the bodies of the birds. I want the bodies to be black, but I don't want to use my black marker. I want something a little less stark, so I'm using a cool gray here instead. Now you can go with a lighter shade, perhaps a C7, or a different tone like a neutral gray or even a warm gray. Do what works best for you. Now I also added a touch of darker C10 along the detail lines on my bird, just to help that line remain visible on the finished image. Lately, I really love to color images without the need to do excessive color planning, color blending. All I want to do is add a solid layer of color and call it done. And I feel like this is the best way to get into coloring. This reminds me of like children's coloring, when you just have one color, one marker, and you doodle or scribble it all over your image. Now, if you've never done coloring before, or if you struggle with coloring, doing this sort of single marker color application is very approachable. Next, I'm using C3 and C1 markers to add a touch of shading to the belly. I am keeping the belly and the face mostly white. And I know I said I'm not going to do any blending, but sometimes when I use a C1, it ends up being barely visible. So I had to add the C3. And of course, the C3 was a little bit too dark, so I had to blend it out using my C1 marker. Next, I'm using the YR07 to color part of the beak orange. Again, this is single marker coloring process. There is no blending. I'm also using this same color to add a touch of orange around the eye. I looked up images of puffins online and they all had either yellow or orange detail around the eyes, so I decided to copy that. Next, I'm coloring the feet orange as well, doing zero shading here and not worrying at all about this image looking flat. To me, it doesn't look flat. To me, it looks fun, playful, quirky, and colorful. Next, using Y35 to color the other part of the beak yellow. And again, there's no shading, just doing one solid color application here. Next, I'm using YG01 to color one of the balloons yellow and YG03 to color the other balloon a slightly darker yellow. So even though I'm using two different shades of yellow, I'm not blending them, I'm not combining them here. I'm using one for one section and another color for another section. Now, when using an alcohol marker to color a somewhat larger area, such as the balloon, you might need to go over that area a few times to really saturate your paper and have smooth, solid color coverage. This also depends on how fresh your marker is, how well re-inked it is, and things like that. Now, there's also a party hat image and a fish tied with a bow image, and I'm using the same marker colors to color these, although I am adding just a little bit of blending and shading here. Now you can color these images using one color, and if you want to add something extra, you can use a white pen to draw lines or polka dots to add interest to the hat. Now I colored the rest of the images using the same principles and the same colors of markers, and next I cut them out using coordinating dies, and look at these adorable cuties. Next, I have a white cardstock panel. This is cut to 4¼ by 5½ inches, and it is placed inside my mini Misty. I'm going to play with the bird placement to plan my sentiment. What I want to do is I want to go with a grid design here, a 2x2, so have 4 sections on the card, 3 of which are birds, and then the 4th section is a sentiment. This is a super simple layout, and it works for a lot of different images. With the birds positioned, by the way, I added foam adhesive squares to the back of each bird and to the back of all of my die kits, really. I will be foam mounting these onto my card anyway, so it made sense to add foam adhesive now. And I typically like to do this because you know why? It makes it a lot easier to pick up my die cuts from my work surface. Now, my sentiment is going to be a 2-part sentiment. So there's going to be a bottom part and a top part. The bottom part, the longer message, is stamped in gray ink. This is the Simon Says stamp Positively Saturated Ink in Color Charcoal. The rest of the sentiment, the main part, will be stamped in black. So this gray part is more of a sub-sentiment, an additional message on my project. So next, I'm stamping the word birthday. I have it positioned directly above my sub-sentiment, and I intentionally cut the happy birthday apart using my scissors to be able to stack this message. I'm stamping one word at a time, as this allows me to better position my stamps and have them placed or stamped a bit closer together. Now I'm scooching the word happy a little bit to the right as I want to add a party hat over the letter B in the birthday to dress it up. Next, I decided I wanted to trim this panel, so I took 1/8 inch off from each side. So the final panel size measures 4 by 5¼ inches. I added a fog cardstock panel to the front of my A2 top folding card base. I wanted to add a little bit more gray to my card. And next I used a panel of white fun foam, and this was cut slightly smaller than my sentiment panel. And I used it to add dimension to my sentiment panel. So I basically popped the sentiment panel up on my card using the layer of fun foam. With that done, I foam mounted the birds onto the card following that grid layout that I had previously planned. Now I also added the little fish die cuts in between the birds to fill the space in and add interest. Lastly, I pulled some gems from my stash. These are the Spellbinders black gems, and I added a few onto my card, especially notice the 2 small gems next to the word birthday. I really love how the black gems tied together with the black coloring on the birds. Now here are 2 more simple card ideas created using the same supplies and the same techniques. I loved using this stamp set and I just couldn't stop in one card. I was inspired to make more, so I stamped a couple of additional images. I did some more coloring and I made 2 more super simple birthday cards. I hope you like these ideas. If you make a card inspired by this video, we'd love it if you shared your project online and tagged us on social media. We always enjoy seeing what you make. Thanks so much for joining me today. Love you guys, and I'll see you next time.